On behalf of English Literary Committee MMBA, we would like to extend a warm welcome to each and everyone present here. The meeting is called to order. When invocation descends into the heart, if there is darkness within it, it illuminates it. And if there is already light, it intensifies the light. A welcome address is meant to welcome the guest of honor, the attendees, and set the context and occasion. I would like to invite Mr. Srinivasa Raghavan, the chairperson of English Literary Committee, MMBA, to welcome the gathering.
Happy evening to all. As you all know that this committee has been formed for the purpose of inspiring lawyers, more particularly youngsters, to know the utility and value of the language of English while we are practicing the law. Of course, we are not underestimating our mother tongue or any other vernacular language for that matter, but English is the best tool to acquire language and learn any subject globally. So, the award object of the committee is to instill, imbibe and inculcate the value of the English language in the matter of or process of learning law in the proper way. So we have been conducting classes and courses for the purpose, and so far we have done 3 sessions, most of them in the nature of imparting skills like communication, workplace communication, etc. This occasion we have decided to do something unique, and the idea is given by none other than the chief guest herself. The school in which she is working, in which most of our children are studying, called the Lakshmi School, they have a famous, what is called, even called a declamation, where they recite the poems written by a famous person, of course by heart, not by seeing the text. So when we were talking about the next program, she suggested this and we agreed, and our chairman was very happily to say yes, and thus the program was conceived. So the first and foremost thing, I am here to welcome our President of MMBA, Madam Krishnaveni, for the support and the, what is called, the cooperation she has been extended. I welcome her. I welcome the General Secretary, Mr. Ilango, and the members of the committee, Mr. Ajay, Coordinator, Ms. Lakshmi Prasanna, who has been the master of the ceremony in all the important occasions, and Mr. Rajkumar, and the absentee members, Sibi Chakravarti and Mr. Ilangovan. And more importantly, I am here to welcome the participants here who have just said yes the moment I made a call to them. So I would just welcome each and every participant. I want to name them. Ms. Abisha Isaac George, you are welcome. And Mr. Mohabab Atif, you are welcome. Mr. Mayappan, you are welcome. Mr. Prem Ayature, you are most welcome. Mr. Parthiban, you are welcome. And Mr. Chidambaram, you are welcome. And Yadini, you are welcome. And Mr. Jaymohan, you are welcome. And the clap means a lot to me, and him also. And Ms. Preeta, a student of law, final year, you are welcome. And Ms. Florence Becky Catherine, a student of law, welcome. And there is one person who has not been named here, Mr. Arsh Ravikumar, advocate, you are also welcome. So I welcome all the participants who have come amidst your tight schedule, and hereby I also acknowledge the presence of Ms. Anandavalli, President of WAA, Ms. Shivashankari, Secretary of WAA, and other important members of the bar, Mr. Marana Kumar and others. If I omit anybody, please forgive me for my absent-mindedness. And more importantly, I am here to welcome Mrs. Vidya, the chief guest, and she has been a pillar of the Department of English in the Lakshmi School, known for her prowess in the knowledge of English. We are delighted to have Ms. Vidya here as the evaluator as well as the chief guest. With this welcome address, I just invite and welcome one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your earnest welcome address. It's time to honor today's guest of honor. I would like to invite the President of MMBA, beloved Senior Advocate N. Krishnaveni, to honor today's guest, Ms. Vidya, with a memento as a token of love. Miss Vidya, today's guest of honor, has an ardent passion for the English language, which started from the day she started her schooling as a little girl and continues as a never-ending journey while she teaches languages to countless students each day. She is blessed to have a scientist as a dad, a biologist as her mom, and a doctor as a husband, and two adorable children who also show flair for the English language. A product of Stella Maris, Chennai, Ms. Vidya is an MA graduate with a B.Ed and MPhil. She has a cumulative teaching experience of 14 years both in Abu Dhabi and in India. She is currently a senior faculty in Lakshmi School, Madurai. Apart from teaching, she takes great interest in training students for debates, declamation, oratorical contest, and dramatics. She is a prominent face in the skits and plays showcased by the Lakshmi School as a drama trainer and an actress. Her hobbies include writing, reading, and watching English movies. I would like to invite the chairperson of English Literary Committee, MMBA, Mr. S. Srinivasa Raghavan, to give a brief note about the theme of today's program, legal declamation.
Again, I don't want to stand between you and the chief guest and the declamators. Many eyebrows would have been raised. Why declamation at this age and stage for us? Sorry for mentioning the age, especially the female members. And declamation, as you know, is nothing but a recitation of what has been already spoken and written by somebody else with the most powerful way in which you can do. It is not an oration or public speaking or what is called elocution where you speak your own content. Declamation is something different which you are going to recite what others have already written or spoke or something. This is the way in which we want to do the event, and we have picked up and chosen 10 plus 1 people, or 2 of them are aspiring law students who are already known for their diction and knowledge in English, I hope so. So the declamation, if it is properly used, it will help the advocates to improvise their skill both in and outside the court. This is the scope of the program. Rest you will see in person. Thank you.
Now I request the chairperson of English Literary Committee, Mr. S. Srinivasa Raghavan, to take over the podium and handle this session. The participants will be called to recite the speech or poem randomly and not in the order found in the invitation. I request all the dignitaries to kindly occupy the front seats of the dais.
To begin with, I would request, of course, A for Abhisha, and she will recite an extract from the address by Sir Edmund Burke on the event of impeachment of Warren Hastings, which you would have known while you were studying history or at least legal history. Ms. Abhisha, you are welcome.
Good evening to all of you. It is always difficult to be the first batsman in any event, but fortunately or unfortunately, I'm the first participant today. Just a 2-line introduction about the extract which I'm going to recite now. All of you know about Sir Warren Hastings, the first Governor General of Bengal and former Governor General of India. Because of all the atrocities he committed in India, the number of killings and lot of murders, he was tried in Great Britain for high crimes and misdemeanors. Sir Edmund Burke led the prosecution. And why this address is very significant is, it is because it is considered as one of the greatest discourses on arbitrary power in legal history. So I think it is very much relevant in the present day context as well. So here goes nothing. My lords, you have now heard the principles on which Mr. Hastings governs the part of Asia subjected to the British Empire. Here he has declared his opinion that he is a despotic prince, that he is to use arbitrary power, and that, of course, all his acts are covered with that shield. I know, says he, the constitution of Asia only from its practice. Will your lordship submit to hear that corrupt practices of mankind made principles of government? He have arbitrary power, my lords. The East India Company have not arbitrary power to give him. The king has no arbitrary power to give him. Your lordships have not, nor the crown, nor the whole legislature. We have no arbitrary power to give, because arbitrary power is a thing which no man can either hold or give to anyone. No man can lawfully govern himself according to his own will, much less can one person be governed by the will of another. We are all born in subjection, all born equally, high and low, governed and governors, born in subjection to one great immutable pre-existent law, prior to all our devices, prior to all our contrivances, paramount to all our ideas and to all our sensations, antecedent to our very existence, by which we are all knit and connected in one eternal frame of the universe, out of which we cannot stir. Law and arbitrary power are in eternal enmity. Name me a magistrate, I will name property. Name me power, I will name protection. It is a contradiction in terms, it is blasphemy in religion, it is wickedness in politics. Your lordships may know that any man who give and receive arbitrary power are criminal alike. Where does this great law come from, my lords? It does not arise on our conventions or compacts. It does not arise on our vain institutions. However, it arises from one divine power, out of which all eternal laws of justice come from. This great law does not arise from our conventions and compacts. On the contrary, it gives to our conventions and compacts the force and sanction they can have. It does not arise from our vain institutions. Your lordships, what is it that we want here? Do we want a cause, my lords, to this great act of national justice? You have the cause before you of oppressed provinces, of women of first rank undone, of desolated provinces, and of wasted kingdoms. Your lordships, no man can give arbitrary power. The one who gives and the one who receives arbitrary power are criminal alike. And there is no man that is bound but to resist it to the best of its power, wherever it shall show its face to the world. Your lordships, if they were mad enough to create an express compact with the great judge himself, should they release their magistrate from his duty? Should they declare their lives, liberties, and properties not dependent upon rules and regulations, but on his mere capricious will, then that covenant would be void. Your lords, my lords, I do not now wish to go farther than to just remind your lordships of this, that Mr. Hastings' government was one whole system of oppression, of spoliation of the public, of robbery of individuals, and of supersession of all the principles of the English government, in order to vest in the hands of the worst of natives all power which can possibly exist in any government, in order to defeat the ends which all governments ought to have common in view. In the name of the Commons of England, I charge all this villainy upon Warren Hastings at this last moment of my application to you. Do we want a prosecutor, my lords? You have the Commons of England before you. My lords, do not look at India to search for such another delinquent. Mr. Hastings has not left substance enough to nourish any other such delinquent in India. What is it that we want here, my lords? Do we want a tribunal? No example of antiquity, either in the modern world or in all the range of human imagination, can supply us with a tribunal like this. We commit safely the interests of India and the interests of humanity into your hands. It is with this confidence that, ordered by the Commons, I impeach Mr. Warren Hastings, Esquire, of high crimes and misdemeanors. I impeach Warren Hastings in the name of all the Commons of England in Parliament assembled, whose parliamentary trust he has betrayed. I impeach him in the name of the Commons of England, whose national character he has dishonored. I impeach him in the name of all the people of India, whose laws, liberties he has subverted, whose properties he has destroyed, and whose country he has laid waste and desolate. I impeach him by and in the name of all the eternal laws of justice which he has violated. I impeach him in the name of human nature itself, which he has cruelly outraged, injured, and oppressed in both sexes of every age, rank, situation, and condition of life. My lords, at this awful close, in the presence of all the commons and surrounded by them, I attest the retiring, I attest the advancing generations between which, in the great link of eternal order, we stand. We call this nation, we call the whole world to witness that the commons have shrunk from no labor, that we have not been guilty of any prevarication, that we have made compromise with no crimes, that we have not feared any odium whatsoever in the long warfare that we have carried on with crimes, with vices, with exorbitant wealth, and with the enormous and overpowering influence of the Eastern corruption. My lords, we the commons will share in every fate that your lordships will face. There is nothing sinister that will happen to you, in which the commons shall not all be involved. My lords, but if it should so happen that we are subjected to all the frightful changes that we see here, if it should so happen that your lordships are stripped of all the decorous distinctions of human society and be taken to the scaffolds, to the murderous machines where glorious kings and great kings have shed their blood, amidst the prelates, amidst the nobles, amidst the magistrates who supported their throne, may I so wish that in those moments you feel that consolation which I am persuaded they felt in those critical moments of their dreadful agony. My lords, if you must fall, may you so fall. And if you stand, stand, I trust you will. May you so stand with the great laws of this ancient monarchy. May you so stand with the ancient laws and liberties of this great and illustrious kingdom. May you stand as unimpeached in honor as in power. May you stand as a refuge to afflicted nations. May you stand long and long stand the terror of tyrants. And may you stand not as a substitute for virtue, but as a security for virtue, as an ornament for virtue, and may you stand as a sacred temple for the perpetual residence of inviolable justice.
Congratulations, Abhishek, for an excellent job. May I now request Ms. Preeta, law student, to do her part.
Good evening. My presence here is to recapitulate the intuitive speech about gender equality given by Emma Watson in 2014 at a UNO Women's He for She campaign. I was appointed 6 months ago. The more I spoke about feminism, the more I realized that fighting for women's rights has too often become synonymous with man-hating. If there is one thing I know for certain, it is that this has to stop. For the record, feminism by definition is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. It is the theory of political, economic, social equality of the sexes. I started questioning gender-based assumptions a long time ago. When I was 8, I was confused of being called bossy because I wanted to direct the plays we would be put for our parents, but the boys were not. When at 14, I started being sexualized by certain elements of the media. When at 15, my girls' friends started dropping out their beloved sports teams because they didn't want to appear muscly. When at my 18, my male friends were unable to express their feelings. I decided I was a feminist, and this seemed uncomplicated to me. But my recent research has shown me that feminism has become an unpopular word. Women are choosing not to identify as feminist. Apparently, I'm among the ranks of the women whose expressions are seen as too strong, too aggressive, isolating, anti-men, and unattractive even. Why has the word become such an uncomfortable one? I'm from Britain, and I think it is right that as a woman, I'm paid the same as my male counterparts. I think it is right that I should be able to make decisions about my own body. I think it is right that women be involved on my behalf in policies and decisions that will affect my life. I think it is right that socially I am afforded the same respect as man. But sadly, I say that there is no country in the world where all women can expect to receive the rights. No country in the world can yet say that they have achieved gender equality. Thank you very much.
We are very happy to see that the young budding lawyer is on the offing. Thank you. And may I now request the senior most participant and the most dearest advocate, Mr. Atif, to deliver his speech.
Good evening, everybody. 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth in this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived would long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who have here given their lives that the nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men living and dead who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor ability to add or detract. The world will little note, no long remember what we have said here, but it will never forget what they did here. It is for us living rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so long nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead have not died in vain. That this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. That the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Atif. You are not Atif. You are a thief who has stolen the hearts of the people. Thank you, anyhow. May I now call Ms. G. Yalini to deliver a speech from the extract of the speech by Justice Ramasubramaniam J. about judicial inroads into arbitration.
Good evening to one and all. The concept of judicial intervention is already a settled position, but with certain restrictions. Where the problem really arose was with respect to what a public policy was. Under Section 34, an award can be challenged if it is in conflict with the public policy of India. Before 2015 amendment, the explanation under Section 34 indicated that award induced by fraud or corruption or violation of sections 75 or 81 will be in conflict with the public policy of India. But what happened was that explanation was merely said. It is hereby clarified that an award which is vitiated by fraud, corruption, etc. will be treated as violation of public policy of India. It was merely inclusive but not restrictive. Therefore, what was public policy of India? This itself became a question. What happened was, in Renusagar Power Company case, the Supreme Court said, in the context of international commercial arbitration, what the concept of public policy of India should be given a very narrow interpretation. But this decision was subsequently impliedly overruled in ONGC vs. SAW Pipes, wherein the Supreme Court held that it has to be given a broader view. But this was taken to another level in the decision of Hindustan Zinc, wherein it was decided by the Supreme Court that whenever the arbitration award went contrary to the terms of the contract, then the court can interfere in it. Therefore, a decision rendered by the arbitrator can be interfered when there is a specific contravention in the terms of the contract, and this is said to be the violation of public policy according to the Supreme Court decision. Then there was a big hue and cry. The Supreme Court acknowledged in other judgment in McDermott International that the decision in ONGC vs. SAW Pipes has come in for severe criticisms. In fact, the judgment that Justice Sinha writes that we are not unmindful of criticisms drawn by ONGC vs. SAW Pipes, but it will have to be referred to a larger bench for a final decision, and simply they followed the ONGC decision. This big hue and cry as to what public policy was, and should it be given a narrow interpretation or should it be given a broader view, that ultimately culminated in 2015 amendment. Therefore, in the 2015 amendment, it was laid down that the violation of public policy would be only if, the terms only if were incorporated in the 2015 amendment, and it said only if it is induced by fraud, corruption or violation of section 75 or 81, and then the next point would be of if it is in contravention of fundamental policy of India. What is fundamental policy of India? Nobody has any idea on that. And then it is on the basic concepts of morality and justice. When the morality and justice is contravened, then the public policy is affected. What is morality? What is justice? Nobody will have any idea about that, because everybody has got different interpretation on the same. If you are a liberal, you will have a different idea of what morality is. And if you are a conservative, your idea of morality will be completely different. So the next concept of what justice is, that will also be completely clueless. Each according to is to their own value system, is it not? And then it will be according to the value systems which we have inherited from our parents, that we later discarded when we entered into our college. Correct? A person was brought to court from jail. He was accused of heinous crimes. He was a notorious criminal. But since 90 days has gone, he was enlarged on statutory bail. Then he went out of the court and crossed the road. He was ran over by a bus. Then all TV channels rushed to the court complex and they interviewed people. 90% of the people said, "Sir, justice was done." I had a doubt whether the justice was done by the judge who delivered the judgment by releasing him on bail, or whether justice was done by the bus driver who ran over him. But the bus driver did not intentionally do it. So, I don't think if the judge, by releasing the person on bail, has he done justice or has he not done justice. But the bus driver, he also did not intend doing that. So, what is the notion of justice? That also was introduced in the 2015 amendment. I think there are still cases yet to come up on the ground that is the award contrary to the terms of morality and justice. Thank you.
Thanks, Shalini, for your speech, and may I now request Mr. K. Jayamohan. Jayamohan, a young advocate who is a Kavingan in Tamil, will prove his prowess in English this time. Jayamohan, you are welcome.
Very pleasant evening to one and all present here. Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? what have I or those I represent has to do with your national independence or the great principles of political freedom and natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us. I am not included in the pale of glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice is not celebrated by me. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you in common and not by me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. The 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in your joyous anthems is inhuman mockery and sacrilegious inhumanity. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions. Standing there identified with the American bondman, making his wrongs mine, I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character of this nation has never looked blacker to me than this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or to the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false in the future. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than the people of United States at this very hour. No nation can now shut itself up from the surrounding world and trot around in the same old path of its fathers without interference. Such days are gone. But a change has now come over the affairs of the mankind. World cities and empires have become unfashionable. The arm of commerce has borne away the gates of the strong city. Intelligence is penetrating the darkest corners of the globe. From Boston to London is now a holiday excursion. Oceans no longer divide, but unite nations together. Thoughts expressed on one side of the Atlantic is distensively heard on the other side. The fate of the Almighty, let there be light, has not yet spent its force. No abuse, no outrage, whether in taste, sport or avarice, can now hide itself from all pervading light. The iron shoe and the crippled foot of China must be seen in contrast with nature. Africa must rise and put on her unwoven garment. Ethiopia shall stretch and out her God unto God. So have a thoughtful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaymohan. It is Jayalalitha and Karunanidhi together in the matter of rhetoric and English. Thank you once again. It is your Jaya Karuna. Thank you. And may I now request Mr. Chidambaram to recite a poem as a matter of declamation. Chidambaram is known for his what is called English. May I see this Chidambaram what he does? Okay.
Thank you, sir. Madam President, our beloved chief guest, our respected senior, and all other my fellow colleagues. A very good evening to all present here. 6 humans trapped by happenstance in a bleak and bitter cold. Each pressed a stick of wood, or so the story is told. Their dying fire in need of log, the first man held his back. 4 of the faces round the fire, he noticed one was black. The next man, looking across the way, saw one not of his church and couldn't bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. The third one sat in a tattered clothes. He gave his coat a hitch. Why should his log be put to use to warm a little rich? The rich man just sat back and thought of the wealth he had in store and how to keep what he had earned from the lazy, shiftless poor. The black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from the sight. All he saw in a stick of wood was a chance to spite the white. The last man of the forlorn group did not accept in gain. Giving only to those who gave was how he played the game. Their locks held tight in death's still hands was a proof of human sin. They didn't die from the cold without, but they died from the cold within. It is one of the finest literature in the English poetries, which easily gives the meaning of discrimination to even a layman who reads the poem. I hope you all enjoyed. Cold Within by James Patrick Kinney. Thank you. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you, Chidambaram, because reciting a poetry is something very unique and rare, and I should appreciate you for your efforts. Thank you once again, Mr. Chidambaram. May I request Miss Florence Becky Catherine, a student of law, to give her speech.
Good evening to all. I'm grateful to be in the presence of great dignitaries both in the field of law and literature. So this is how the speech goes. So, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, and I have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out to the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of the former slave owners will be able to sit together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, a state sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of justice and freedom. I have a dream that little children will one day live in a nation where they are not judged by the color of the skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious races, with its governor, with his lips dripping with the words interposition and nullification, right down there in Alabama, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls as brothers and sisters. I have a dream today that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain made low, rough places plain, and every crooked path shall be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. I have a dream today. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the south with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of a nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free at last. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for the vociferous yet powerful and meaningful rendition. Congratulations for your good future. And may I request Mr. Prem Ayaturi to deliver an extract of your dissenting judgment in your case law of US.
Good evening. Experience should teach us to be most on our guard to protect liberty when the government's purposes are beneficent. Men born to freedom are naturally allowed to repel invasion of their liberty by evil-minded rulers. The greatest dangers to liberty lurk in the insidious encroachment by men of zeal, well-meaning, but without understanding. Here, the evidence obtained by crime was obtained at the government's expense, by its officers, while acting on its behalf. The officers who committed these crimes are the same officers who were charged with the enforcement of the Prohibition Act. The crimes of these officers were committed for the purpose of securing evidence with which to obtain an indictment and to secure a conviction. The evidence so obtained constitutes the warp and woof of the government's case. There is literally no other evidence of guilt on part of some of the defendants except that illegally obtained by these officers. When these unlawful acts were committed, they were crimes only of the officers individually. The government was innocent in legal contemplation, for no federal officer is authorized to commit a crime on its behalf. When the government, having full knowledge, sought through the Department of Justice to avail itself of the fruits of these acts in order to accomplish its own ends, it assumed moral responsibility for the officers' crimes. And if this court should permit the government, by means of its officers' crimes, to effect its purpose of punishing the defendants, there would seem to be present all elements of a ratification. If so, the government itself would become a lawbreaker. Will this court, by sustaining the judgment below, sanction such conduct on part of the executive? The governing principle has long been settled. It is that a court will not redress a wrong when he who invokes its aid has unclean hands. The maxim of unclean hands comes from the courts of equity, but the principle prevails also in the courts of law. Its common application is in civil action between private parties, where the government is the actor. The reasons for applying it are even more persuasive. Where the remedies invoked are those of criminal law, the reasons are compelling. The door of a court is not barred because a plaintiff has committed a crime. The confirmed criminal is as much entitled to redress as his most virtuous fellow citizen. No record of crime, however long, makes one an outlaw. The court's aid is denied only when he who seeks it has violated the law in connection with the very transaction as to which he seeks legal redress. Then aid is denied, despite the defendant's wrong. It is denied in order to maintain respect for law, in order to preserve the judicial process from contamination. The rule is one not of action, but of inaction. It is sometimes spoken as a rule of substantive law, but it extends to matter of procedure as well. A defense may be waived. It is waived when not pleaded. But the objection that the plaintiff comes with unclean hands will be taken by the court itself. It will be taken despite the wish to the contrary of all parties to the litigation. The court protects itself. Decency, security, and liberty alike demand that government shall be subjected to the same rules of conduct that are commands to the citizens. In a government of laws, existence of the government will be imperiled if it fails to observe the law scrupulously. Our government is the potent, the omnipresent teacher. For good or ill, it teaches the whole people by its example. Crime is contagious. If the government becomes a lawbreaker, it breeds contempt for law. It invites every man to become a law unto himself. It invites anarchy. To declare that in the administration of criminal law, the end justifies the means, to declare that the government may commit crimes in order to secure the conviction of the private criminal would bring terrible retribution. Against that pernicious doctrine, this court should resolutely set its face. Thank you.
Excellent, Mr. Prem. I think the men in saffron, men in green, and men in white will listen to your words. Thank you. Next, may I call upon Mr. Mayappan to deliver his speech on the extract of the address of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly of India.
Good morning. In the Constituent Assembly, 17/12/1946. In the course of the debate, that took place, there were two questions which were raised, which struck me so well that I took the trouble of taking them down on a note paper. The one question was, it was asked, I think, by my friend, the Prime Minister of Bihar, who spoke yesterday in the Assembly. He said, how can this resolution prevent the League from coming into the Constituent Assembly? Today, my friend Dr. Shyam Prasad Mukherjee asked another question. Is this resolution inconsistent with the Cabinet Mission's proposal? Sir, I think that they were very important questions, and as they are ought to be answered, and answered categorically. I do maintain that this resolution, whether it is intended to bring about the result or not, whether it is a result of cold calculation or whether it is a mere matter of accident, is bound to have the result of keeping the Muslim League out. And I'll substantiate what I said. Sir, I invite your attention to paragraph 3 in the resolution, which I think is very significant and very important. Paragraph 3 envisages the future constitution of India. I do not know what is the intention of the mover of the resolution, but I take it that it is a sort, after this resolution is passed, it will act as a sort of directive to the Constituent Assembly to frame the Constitution in terms of paragraph 3 of the resolution. What does paragraph 3 speak of? Paragraph 3 says that in this country there shall be two different sets of polity. One at the bottom, the autonomous provinces or the states, or such other areas as they may care to join the United India. These autonomous units will have full power. They will also have residuary powers. At the top and over the provincial units, there will be a union government, having certain subjects for legislation, for execution, and for administration. Sir, as I read this part of the resolution, I do not find any reference to the idea of grouping and intermediary structure between the union on the one hand and the provinces on the other. Now, reading this paragraph in the light of the Cabinet Mission statement, or reading it even in the light of the resolution passed by Congress at its Warda session, I must confess that I am a great deal surprised that the absence of any reference to the idea of grouping of the provinces. So far as I am personally concerned, I do not like the idea of grouping. I like a strong united center, much stronger than the center we had created under the Government of India Act 1935. But sir, these opinions, these wishes have no bearing on the situation at all. We have traveled a long road. The Congress party, for reasons best known to itself, consented, if I may use the expression, to the dismantling of a strong center which had grown into this country as a result of 150 years of administration, and which I must say was to me a matter of great admiration and respect. But having given up that position, having said that we do not want a strong center, and having accepted that there must be or should be an intermediate polity, a sub-federation between the union government and the provinces, I like to know why there is no reference in paragraph 3 to the idea of grouping. I find no answer. Good evening and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayappan, for the enthralling speech on the founder of the Constitution of India. Thanks a lot. May I now request Mr. Parthiban, M.S. Parthiban, to deliver his speech from Fali S. Nariman's pages about the quirky cases.
Respected President, Secretary, and Chief Guest, and my beloved teacher, and respected friends and family, good evening, everybody. Early in my career as a lawyer in Bombay High Court, I was witness to an incident which left a deep impression on me. It was a defamation case in which a Parsi solicitor and a Parsi journalist were involved. I was at the bar for only 3 years when the defamation suit was heard. The facts were that in the 1950s, a Parsi journalist, one Homi Daji, took it upon himself to lampoon and slander all, and sundry in his weekly columns in the Gujarati newspaper Kaiser-i-Hind. All the lampoons and slanders are long forgotten, but not the one which concerned one Fardunji Dotiwala, a Bombay solicitor. Homi Daji wrote a column maligning Fardunji. One day, Fardunji rushed into a chamber with a surveillance article written by Homi Daji and angrily showed it to Musban Mistry. Musban read it and went blue in the face. Homi Daji had said in the article that Fardunji, who was a bachelor, used to sleep with his maidservant in the flat. The woman was also named. Shocking, shocking, said Musban. You must immediately file a suit for defamation. So, some of the more experienced juniors in the chamber quickly prepared a plaint, and the suit was filed in the court in record time. When an action for such a surveillance libel is filed, there is generally an offer of a printed apology by the defendant and payment of the plaintiff's costs thrown away. And everyone goes home happy. But there was no prospect of such an offer from Homi Daji. He was what one would call a nut and a colored fiend as well. If he wore a green suit, he would wear a matching green shirt, green socks, green tie, and even green shoes. And on the jacket of his coat, he had his name written on. How could such a person ever be expected to apologize? And regrettably, Mr. Fardunji, the suit had to go on because Homi Daji pleaded justification and public interest. The battle lines were drawn, and the case had to go on before a judge, Justice N.A. Modi, who knew that Homi Daji was a peculiar fellow, eccentric to the core. He also knew that plaintiff, a solicitor, was a respectable person. The judge initially implored and then pleaded with Homi Daji to settle, but Homi Daji said he wanted justice. And the case dragged on for a full month. It was a crowded court every single day of the hearing, and those who had never read the Article 2 come to hear that a well-known Parsi solicitor had illicit relationship with a maidservant. In the witness box, Homi Daji improved on his story and said that Fardunji had illicit relations with yet another maidservant whom he then proceeded to name. And the whole unedifying spectacle dragged on and on for the jollification of unemployed or hardly employed bystanders, until it all ended in sheer exasperation. After 4 full weeks of hearing, the suit was finally withdrawn with a makeshift, half-hearted apology, which was not even published. However, the case has been an object lesson for me, which is that defamation actions in India are luxury, and a dangerous luxury at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parthiban, for the very, what's called a sense of giving something in lighter vein. May I now request the last but not the least person, Mr. R. Ravikumar, Advocate, to deliver his speech. This is the last speech of the session.
Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Where knowledge is free. Where the mind is without fear and head is held high. Where knowledge is free. Where the world has not been broken into fragments by narrow domestic walls. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Where knowledge is free. Where the world has not been broken into fragments by narrow domestic walls. where words come out from the depth of truth, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee, where the mind is led forward by thee, into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi Kumar. And Lakshmi, please, an announcement.
I thank all the participants for the performance. And I would like to invite the chairperson of English Literary Committee, Mr. S. Srinivasa Raghavan, to make a surprise announcement.
My dear friends, before going for the evaluation or something, you can just bear 4 minutes. Just witness a speech which will make you to develop goosebumps.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and children, victims of the system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, the misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
Thank you, the audience, for the patience hearing. You must know that this is not a serious actor. He was a comedian, Charlie Chaplin, who used to act very comedically, and this movie was about Hitler. A barber replaces Hitler, and the Hitler was in exile. He was asked to give a speech to see that the German soldiers are Rentamac, but fortunately enough, the man who in the clad of Hitler was able to give a beautiful lecture. This is an example of how a public speaking should be. Okay? Now the session of the declamation is over. May I request the chief guest and ma'am and Ajay and General Secretary to come to the dais, please.
The roots of all goodness lies in the soil of appreciation. I wanted to thank you all for your participation. The energy and interest shown in this session was extraordinary. We were blown by your enthusiastic participation, and I thank every single of you for your participation and time. May I request the guest of honor to evaluate the address.
Good evening, everybody. First and foremost, let me thank you all for inviting me as a chief guest. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And I not only enjoyed the evening, but I was amazed at the quality of work and the amount of efforts that you've all put in. And it really overwhelms me, your professionalism of approach, your enthusiasm, and your love for the language. You know, it's very heartwarming, genuinely heartwarming, that the MMBA has an English Literary Committee, and you guys organize such beautiful English events every now and then. As a teacher of English, it fills my heart and soul with joy and vigor. Now let's come to the topic, which is declamation. Like many of you have already observed, declamation is nothing but the re-giving of a famous speech. So the speaker is recreating the original text, but he's reproducing the power afresh, the magic afresh. So declamation, if you look at the historical background, it has its roots in Rome. And ancient Rome had declamation as the mainstay of the Roman education system. It was a genre of the rhetoric. And declamation was divided into the controversia and the caesoria. So controversia, it dealt with the cases of defense and prosecution, which is done in courtroom sessions. And caesoria is used when, you know, there is a lot of convincing to be done for a legendary or historical figure to do a course of action. In olden days, the practitioners of declamation were only people who worked in the clergy, who worked in the legislature, and who worked for law. But later on, after the 19th century, the concept of declamation got diversified, and it extended to theatrical and reformist venues. And today, I don't think there's any theatrical presentation or a reformist sermon without an element of declamation in it. Now coming to the relationship between law and declamation. I think I told you before that the early practitioners of declamation belong to the field of law. So it's you guys who actually started the practice of declamation, because it was the ancient Roman lawyers who started it. The relationship between law and declamation is of astounding importance. You know, the quality of declamatory language is such that it is an integral instrument of courtroom sessions. For example, a lawyer with a good competency, the knowledge of law and the subject, if he is able to express well, use the right articulation, intonation, diction, gesture, body language, expression, feeling and emotion, he can win any case. So, declamation is of paramount importance in the field of law, which is why the English Literary Committee organized a declamation event today, right? Because declamation is actually a dramatic piece of oration. And when you master it, you definitely become winners. Now coming to the event that I witnessed today, let me tell you, I was simply stupefied by the performance of all the participants. Each one of you who took part today has much to be proud of. So please give a loud round of applause to all the participants. The kind of potential you displayed was amazing. You have done a lot of hard work. So I can see a lot of potential among you. Really, this was an amazing performance. Then I've been asked to evaluate. So when I evaluate a performance, I need to evaluate based on certain criteria. So the criteria that I have chosen for evaluating you all are choice of topic, intonation and diction, and body language and expression. So, you know, I have kept these three as criteria. I mean, all of you are winners, but then let me just tell you how each one's individual performance is. You all ready? Let me start with Mr. Chidambaram. Your theme was Cold Within. You did the poem by James Patrick Kinney. They didn't die from the cold without, they died from the cold within. If we selfishly hold on to the world's resources, we all will be lost. So we shouldn't have any discrimination, malice or hatred. One of my favorites, and this is a poem which is contemporary by nature. You know, it can suit any milieu, any time. So what I liked about you was that your intonation was really good. And you have a good control over your diction. Like you knew where to pause, you knew where to look up. So I think that was basically your strength. Then we come to Becky Catherine. Okay. Martin Luther's I Have a Dream. You know, this is probably one of the most popular declamation speeches. You can hear it anywhere. Any school, any college you go to, I think this is a favorite among the children. Again, you had very good intonation and diction. So you knew where to emphasize, you knew where to look strong. You also knew where to let the kindness get into your eyes. So that was really great about you. Mr. Prem, yes, you have a spontaneous flair for the language. I think you had impeccable pronunciation, almost flawless. A tip, you could use more body language and more expression, okay? Otherwise it was great, and it was a law-related declamation. So I think it was very relevant to the theme today, legal declamation. Abhisha, sorry. There was something very, very exclusive about you. And that is, you're probably the only one who recited from memory. Yes. Wow. And you had the spontaneous overflow, absolutely no stammering, an excellent choice of topic. Okay, so I was floored, seriously. So now let's go to Preeta. Yes, Preeta. So this was a popular topic, Emma Watson, a trending topic. A lot of people are fans of Emma Watson and probably they've heard it already. And gender equality is the in thing today. Your plus is you establish very good eye contact. It was amazing. But you could improvise on your intonation, your diction, and your pronunciation. So if you improvise on all that, you would be a very good speaker. Atif, yes, you did on Abraham Lincoln. You were very calm, poised, a very good composure. And you also have a very good and stylish pronunciation like the gentleman seated next to you. But you could use more feeling and more emotions here and there because it's declamation, right? Okay. Yalini, law-related declamation, very relevant to the theme. But you could use more body language. But I should say, there's a lot of honesty on your face, you know, a lot of honesty and integrity on your face. But you should use more body language and feelings here and there. Mr. Jai Mohan. Yes. You really have a good body language and expression. But then, I guess when you come to the mic and speak, sometimes it happens to me too, you know, when I totally get involved and I want to just emphasize on myself, sometimes I tend to shout. But that is something which we all need to, you know, practice consciously. So if you want to stress on something or emphasize on something, just keep it a little behind. I know it's difficult, but then it was good. It was enjoyable because I had this, you know, or most of the speeches before were all calm and poised, and yours was like a spark there. So it was really good. Good choice of topic. But you have to improve a bit on your accent and pronunciation. And your energy level was high, and your theme was also relevant to the contemporary world. The next one, Mr. Mayappan, you have a flair for the language. You're a very confident speaker. And you had that smile on your face almost throughout your, you know, it was good, it was enjoyable. Again, it was a law-related declamation, so very suitable to the topic today. Mr. Parthiban, you have a great sense of humor. A different genre, definitely. We enjoyed it. And of course, a law-related declamation, so relevant to the topic. Mr. Ravi Chandran, last but not the least, a famous poem where the mind is without fear. And Rabindranath Tagore, very contemporary theme. You have a good intonation and articulation, but I think you can improve on the pronunciation. So it was an amazing performance. Like I saw Emma Watson, Edmund Burke, Lincoln, Tagore, Martin Luther King, a lot more I missed probably right in front of me. So probably if we have a declamation again, I think we can actually have a contest if later on, if people take it in the right spirit, I think a contest will really drive you towards it. Fine? It will be my pleasure. Because I already had my day today. So thank you so much. Keep the love, keep the faith. Good evening.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a wonderful evaluation, and you gave us where we have to give strength and where we have to correct ourselves. Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all the others. With this note, may I call upon the coordinator of English Literary Committee, Mr. Ajay Kumar Rahul, to pay a rich tribute to our guest of honor and dignitaries by way of proposing the thank quote.
First of all, I have to say that we are very happy. This is our 4th successful program. And I should thank the chief guest for her time and for his kind-hearted. Thank you, madam. And our president, madam, I should thank for arranging this program, Krishnaveni, madam, and our secretary, Ilango, sir, for this, and our Srinivasa Raghavan, chairman of this committee. He did everything in this committee, each and everything he did. I should say it open to all, because he said that our not only advocates, students also get benefit from that.
I thank all the office bearers here and office staffs here and photographers and media.
Thank you for all. And another thing, I should thank Shamla madam, the professor of Priest University, and Malini madam. Kindly stand up, madam. Who are they? Because we doesn't have this opportunity while we're doing the law. In this stage, she is taking you to the court is a big thing. And we tell you, madam, anytime, any program, you can take your students in MMBA. Thank you for all. Thank you. We also thank WAA President Anandavalli madam and Secretary. Thank you. Thank you.
And last but not the least, I want to thank you all for coming. Without your continued support, we would never be able to venture into events like these. So thanks for coming. Thank you all.
Before that, we should give a big applause to Lakshmi Prasanna. Congratulate Ms. Lakshmi for the way in which he presents things, his presence of mind, and whatever comments and quotes she says, is everything by her own homework. And once again, please give a big hand to her.
Thank you so much.